welcome back to my channel. Today we are discussing Interview with the Vampire, episode 7, entitled I Cannot Prevent It. The trial, y'all. We are upon the trial. But before we get into all of that, my cat is right here. Can you see his tail? So if he pops up or you hear some heavy breathing, just know that he's right here where he always wants to be when I'm filming a video. Also, let's get into this eye makeup real quick. We have our trusty Interview with the Vampire palette that we always use for these episodes. I can't believe that I actually have almost done every single episode with a little look. Did not think that I would have the motivation to do it or the know-how, but here we are. We had to dig into the Danger Days palette because there's unfortunately no yellow, and I wanted to do an homage to Claudia and her yellow dress in the trial. So we have our Danger Days palette, and let's cover the mirror. So we used the yellow, and I don't know how well you can see, but the yellow is called Look Alive. And if that is not a goddamn slap in the face, I don't know what is. So that's what we used in the Danger Days palette. But in the Interview palette, we used the black, which is Vampire, down there, right there. And we also used the gold color up here called Infinite, and we used just a tiny bit of Claudia in the inner corners. That's what we used for the makeup look. So we have our standard warnings before we get really into this episode. This is not spoiler free for the episode. Obviously, this is what we're here to do, here to talk about the episode, recap, review, have a little chit chat, but it's also not spoiler free for the books or the movie. Might be bringing in some information from those two sources. So if you really don't want to know anything that has any bearing on the rest of the season, these characters or their motivations, etc., just click out of the video, come back after the season's over. We'd love to keep talking about the episodes, keep talking about the series. Don't have any problem with that. So come back if you really, don't want to know anything, and let's get into this episode. So, like I said, this episode, and I have my laptop here as well with some notes. This episode is called, again, I Could Not Prevent It. And that is a line that Armand says to Louis in regards to Claudia's death in the books. And that, that's where all these episodes are taken out straight from the text from the books. So let's get that in. Let's have that be our first talking point. Armand and his I could not prevent it. I'm still a bit confused about Armand and his choice, what exactly the choice was and what it entailed and what it had to do with giving up power to Santiago, because Santiago declares in front of the whole audience that he is the coven leader now. So I'm not really sure how that all fits into the situation, but Armand is held captive, he says, and his punishment, he says, is him being made to watch the trial, made to watch Louis in particular suffer. So what do we think about that, right? Armand saying that he's being held captive. First of all, he's being held captive by Sam, one of the vampires that we have seen exhibit no real power and no real motivation in the coven besides making his little play. To me, I get the impression that Sam will just follow whoever is in power without giving much care to who that person is. He's just gonna follow the rules of whoever's in power. I don't think he has much stake in who's the leader of the coven, just as long as he gets to put on his little plays, right? So Sam is the one that's guarding Armand, and he has his little scythe, and I wonder if that's the scythe that Louis, spoiler alert, that Louis is gonna use to take revenge on the coven, particularly Santiago. We see him do that in the movie. I believe it comes from the books as well. I don't have a very clear memory on that. Also, Armand, Mr. I Could Not Prevent It, he's sitting in the audience in captive awe of what's going on in the play. I wrote, pleased curiosity. He's overlooking the audience like, wow, this play is a hit. But, I mean, would you be looking that way if you were being held captive? I think he low-key co-wrote it. He was a ghostwriter. That's just what I think. He either wrote it completely or he was definitely involved in the making of this play. How could they have rehearsed and staged and done all of this, made all of these animations without his knowledge? Come on, like when did this happen? When did this happen? So Mr. I Could Not Prevent It, I'm not buying it, not one bit. Absolutely not, especially with him looking so pleased in the audience, so captive. I don't buy it, not one bit. We've seen Armand exhibit control over the entire coven. Now, I want to go back to a point that I made in the last video where I said that, of course, Armand is not all powerful. He's not a godlike being, and especially like I said, we don't know the complete powers of everybody in the coven, and we don't know what they can accomplish when they all work together. One of those theories has been put to the test in this episode. We have Claudia, Madeline, and Louis immobilized, and every time that they try to get up and defend themselves, the coven get together and mind control them. Louis says exactly that the vampires used their collective powers to disorient our minds, their hearing, and it felt like jaws compressing on their skulls. So who knows, like, they have this immense power to dominate 3 vampires. Who's to say that they couldn't do the same thing to Armand if they wanted to? But they don't, because he's in on it. Armand also says he was all focused on trying to figure out a way to get Louis out of there. Or does Louis say that? Louis might have said that, but he co-signs that statement, that he was there to get Louis. His mind was with Louis when the whole deal was going, when Claudia and Madeline were getting sentenced and facing their sentence. My mind was with Louis. It was all Louis, right? That's what he wants to claim, and he used all his strength and his power to mind control the audience to get Louis his banishment instead of death. I would love to see if that was in the script. If it was, or if it wasn't, that has implications on what Armand knew and what Armand didn't know. If it was part of the plan, if that look of Santiago's where he's looking confused about why the audience has not sentenced Louis to death, he's looking to the audience, he's looking to Lestats, he's looking around confused, and then he finally lands on Armand, and then there's this look of like, or you, right? But was that scripted, or was that natural? Did he know that Armand was doing it? Did Armand play a role? Was this a role being played by Armand because perhaps the deal, like I said, the deal the whole time was that Louis would just get a slap on the wrist, fake banishment? So many questions. Now I'm gonna move on to Mr. de Liancourt himself. We see Lestat for the first time in this season. That's not Dreamstat, but it's also not Lestat because it's still recalling a memory, and it's also through this lens of this play. It is so interesting that the writers have come up with so many ways to show Lestat, but it not actually be Lestat. So we have this Lestat filtered through the memories of both Armand and Louis, telling a version of Lestat's memories through this fictionalized play of the events that happened in New Orleans. And the question with all of that is, what can be believed and what is fictionalized? I've tried to stay away from anybody's opinions. I really wanted to form my own before I start talking to people. The regular group that I meet with will have our talk tomorrow, but I did kind of listen to, I'm not sure her name, I'll put it on this, but I did go on to her live and listen to a couple of things that people had to say. Not too much, but it was interesting. And I did also see some things online that people are saying this version is the 100% truth, and look at Louis, look at Claudia, they're wrong, look how they've wronged Lestat. And it's just like, girl, did we watch the same episode? I think the more nuanced view is that everything happened, but did it happen in that exact way? No. We have Armand earlier in the season telling his version of events. All those things kind of happened, right? Most of the things that he says happened, but it did not happen in that exact way. And I feel like this is the very same thing with Lestat and this version of the tale through this script. So we have the turning of Claudia. We have Louis saying that this is how it happened. Lestat saying this is how it happened. Lestat saying, which is so funny to me, he's yelling basically, "No, Louis, the great laws forbid her turning. I cannot do it." It's so funny because, I mean, come on, obviously, like, who's believing that? Who's believing it? But some people are believing it. It's hard to believe that some people are believing it, but some people are, but it's clearly an act. It's clearly not the truth. Louis did beg Lestat to turn Claudia, but did it happen like that? Was he pleading on his hands and knees, telling Lestat, "I'll never leave you if you do this favor for me"? That's what Lestat might have wanted, and we can see later on in the episode where he talks about how he could never get Louis to love him. In that version of Lestat that was very bitter about Louis never confessing his love would have Louis on his hands and knees, using Claudia as a bargaining chip, using Claudia as a way to manipulate Lestat. Absolutely, that version of Lestat would have that. Was Louis actually on his hands and knees dragging Claudia's prone body across the floor? I don't think so. But Louis says that it happened. And Louis also says that it didn't happen. So it's like, what is the truth? Claudia asked him, was it all lies? Or she says, it's all lies, isn't it? And same girl, is it, what's the truth? Are we ever going to find out the truth? Are we ever going to revisit this through Lestat's point of view? I don't know. And unfortunately, we do have Claudia's point of view, but she goes in and out of consciousness. We see that in both Lestat's version and Louis' version. So I don't think we're ever going to learn the truth on that, unfortunately. It's just one of those things we're just going to have to live with. In the books, I don't know why we're playing with is it true or is it not true, because in the books, Louis half drains Claudia in the throes of hunger. Lestat goes and finds her, brings her back to Louis to taunt, basically. and like, oh, look what you did. You've half killed this little child, but look, she's still breathing. Don't you want her? Don't you want her? And he does it, one, to taunt Louis. He also does it to bribe Louis to stay, to guilt Louis into staying. And then it's also kind of implied that he just wanted to do it because he's a little shit, because he's a little brat. So I wish we could have gone with that version of events, and that would have been much more clear cut. I didn't originally have this point on my little notes here, but since this is here, the come to me thing, Lestat flips the script and basically tells the audience that Louis was the one that was coming after him, hunting him, trying to get Lestat to fall in love with him, trying to get to Lestat to come to him. He tells the audience, those were Louis's words to me. Louis fights through the mind control and he's like, no, you said those to me. Lestat then goes, oh, or was it you saying it so loud to me that it echoed back to your head that made you think that I was saying it, like, or something like that. I'm just like, sir, you had, this is by Lestat de Liancourt. Like, come on, let's stop playing games. Another thing from Lestat's perspective that I was calling into question was the fight. We've revisited the fight in this episode, and we get the perspective that it was actually a fight. It was them two going toe to toe, and it not being a domestic violence sort of situation that it kind of got spun into. And we have that whole thing that Santiago says, be aware, we can't, he says basically what I said, that we can't, I wrote it down, that Santiago tells the audience, set aside your moral biases, we are monsters, and to us, what's a bite between paramours? That was just, when the fight was pretty much on the ground. He says that, and that was my understanding. That's kind of what Sam said, and that's, and Louis gave as good as he got, is the impression that we get from Lestat's point of view in this episode. And Louis kind of nods, co-signs it. At least at the beginning, we don't really see his perspective. We don't really see Louis once Lestat gets into the telling, but at the start, he nods his head when Lestat says, we were just pushing each other around through the apartment until things got out of hand and boiled over, that is. So I was really kind of pleased that we got that, but also horrified that we saw Louis in this way. Is Louis capable of being nasty the way that Lestat describes? Absolutely. And in the chat that I was in earlier, they said that we see Louis being capable of monstrosity with the murder of the alderman. And then I thought immediately of the guy in the park, what he did to the body. And so we are aware that Louis is capable of that type of monstrosity. But the cartoon villain maniacal laughter, is that little extra seasoning that Lestat put on it? I think so. I think Louis absolutely threatened him and maybe laughed at him a bit, but the maniacal laughter, yeah, I don't think so. I also talked about the drop in the episode 6 video. I thought that it might have been Armand again implanting a memory into Louis's head. It might have been like a rehashing of events, because we know in the books that Armand drops Lestat. So could he have implanted that memory in Louis's head that, oh no, Lestat did that to you? That's what I thought. That's what I was hoping. It would have been a nice little demon Armand moment. but also would have lessened the reality that Lestat admits he did drop him. He dropped him on purpose. He dropped him with the intent to hurt him and make him feel just as horrible as Louis made him feel. Like, he said he couldn't make him love him, so he was going to hurt him. That was really hard to hear, and he apologized, and I did not accept it. I didn't accept it. That's gonna take a little bit to get over, honestly. And Louis says that he didn't accept the apology. Like, he wasn't thinking about whether Lestat was being honest or truthful or not. We see that regardless, Louis did forgive him and took him back. And Lestat says that he didn't deserve it, and I absolutely agree that he didn't deserve it. But I had a thought that, does Louis think him taking Lestat back is penance for him never admitting to Lestat that he loved him? Like, did he acknowledge, like, okay, like Santiago says, the fall to a mortal would have been mortal. You would have died. But to a immortal, to a vampire, it's a fall. And of course, he would have taken some time to heal, but he would have healed. What's a bite among paramours? That's how Santiago wants to dismiss it. But is Louis aware of that? And does Louis co-sign that? Again, I keep saying co-sign. Does Louis co-sign that idea, number one? And does he think that it was almost a justified reaction because Lestat took him into the air and was just basically begging him, tell me you don't love me. Tell me you'll never love me. It'll help me a great deal. But he never does. And he drops him. So I don't know. I'm just trying to get into Louis' screwed up head, but it's hard. They're both really messed up. The both of them are really messed up. And we know with Claudia's turning and Lestat yelling out, no, we can't turn her because of the great laws, that did not happen that way. We know that because Louis and Claudia both say Lestat never told them about any great laws. You could say that they're lying, but if Lestat would have told them about any great laws, then he would have had to tell them about other vampires and how he knows this and where these vampires are, because the questions would have kept coming one after another after he had admitted that. And we know that they didn't know about these vampires. Clearly, they didn't know where to go. They didn't know where to find them. They didn't know that vampires were in Paris. So we know that aspect was not true. We know that there are some truths sprinkled in with the lies. And the last of the major things that happened in this episode, of course, Claudia and Madeleine's death. Firstly, I want to say I am so proud of my girl for not going down without a fight. She was defiant to the end, and she did not take any shit from the vampires, from the audience. She was standing up for Louis until the end as well. You know, when the audience was laughing at him, when Santiago was doing his mind control thing, she was screaming at them, leave Louis alone. I really loved that. And the curse, like, that she basically did on the audience, I'm going to come back to kill you whether there is an afterlife or not. Like, come on. Like, yes, girl, you're not gonna see me vulnerable. I'm not gonna sit here and cry and plead and beg. And Claudia even says, do you want that? I'll do that for you if you want it. Are you gonna let me off? Look at Lestat, him crying and pleading in the corner for forgiveness. Will you forgive me? And she says it with such an air of arrogance and dismissiveness. And it was just so good. It was so good. Madeleine also giving the finger to the audience. Like, those girls did not give one F, and we love that for them. In the last video, I kind of talked about Madeline and how I thought perhaps there was a sprinkle of her maybe being more interested in being in vampirism than in Claudia, or, you know, that was really the pull. Claudia was like a little bonus. And I thought maybe that would come up in the trial as another thing to throw in Claudia's face. Because we see Claudia standing up in the trial like, this isn't about me. And it really was not about her. This whole thing was not about her. Santiago was pissed at Louis, and she was just collateral damage for him to get back at, for Santiago to get back at Louis, to gain power over the coven, over Armand. Like, she was not the main focus of this trial. And she tells that to Louis and Lestats, like, I'm just another casualty in the in y'all's shitty romance story. Like, this trial isn't about me. You didn't come to France for me. You came for Louis. So I thought that was going to be something to throw in Claudia's face, like, she didn't even want you. She only wanted the power from you, and that would have even devastated Claudia more, because I expected Claudia to be pleading, to be crying in the corner, to be scared. I love that didn't come to pass. I love that Madeline was genuine and that she did decide to stick up for Claudia. And when she was given the choice to either join the coven and live or die, by not joining the coven, which really should have been Louis's only option as well, but he was just too pretty, that she chose Claudia. She chose to die with Claudia. And I loved that, because even Claudia was trying to goad her to say that she would join the coven, and she didn't listen. And I really loved that I was proven wrong, basically. But I still hold to the fact that, we don't know how good they would have been to each other in the long run, but in this short time, they were perfect. So I'm super happy about that. I do want to say that I gained a little bit more sympathy for Lestats in regards to Claudia's turning, because we see in the in last episode that Louis was almost disgusted by turning Madeline, to the point where he tried to make himself throw up the blood so that he wouldn't be connected to this stranger. And then we see Lestats say, you don't know this girl. Like, what are you talking about? You want to turn her? You don't know this girl. Basically calling her a stranger. And we see how hard it was. So we see how hard it was for Louis. So I can imagine that the same was true for Lestats. Because at this point, Lestats had not turned anybody that he did not know, that he did not have a special connection with. So in the show, I can understand that he's like, why do you want me to turn this child, number one, who we shouldn't be turning to begin with? I believe him when he says he warned Louis that we shouldn't turn Claudia because of this, that, and the third. Does he say specifically that it's because of these great laws, and does he say it so grandly and with so much conviction? I don't believe it. I do just think that he was like, no. And Louis gave him his puppy eyes. He was like, okay, anything for you. I definitely have more of a sympathy for him with not wanting to turn Claudia. And also we have more understanding in him not really feeling a grand connection to her. At least in the show, we don't see them having a huge connection. We see them hanging out, we see them having fun, we see him teaching her, but there's not a lot of love going on. We're not seeing hugging. And I just saw this really beautiful drawing where Claudia's kind of sitting on the ground and Lestats combing her hair. I wish we would have seen that. But I do think he learned to have feelings for her, but really, she was a stranger to him, and he knew that she shouldn't have been turned. and he's more willing to give up that connection. The connection to Claudia wasn't initially something that was all powerful and consuming. Like, I think he was fond of her basically, but I don't think that it was well, at least the show did not convey to me that it was love, that he loved her like a daughter. I would love to know what Delaney's thoughts are, or even Bailey, who played Claudia in season 1, the writers, what Sam has to say in regards to how Lestat actually feels about Claudia. Is it parental? Does he love her? I would love to know that, to get some more insight, because it didn't really come across to me. We don't know why Lestat is in Paris now, and I'm really curious to find out why, and I'm really curious as to, it seems like that he knows that it's Louis or Claudia. Maybe they've threatened Louis. They've told him that, Louis gonna die. We're gonna kill Louis if you don't go along with this. I don't know. But I know that he looks like he's being restrained. Number one, like the coven is exerting some power over him. When Claudia starts to burn, like he's being mentally restrained, or something's going on. He's like in the corner shaking. Maybe he's shaking from emotion. I don't know. But he looks like he wants to intervene, but he also looks like that it's something that's stopping him from intervening. I'm really curious to see how that plays out in the next episode. Overall, I'm just really happy that I survived this episode without screaming, crying, throwing up. When I turned on the episode, right after I had seen the trailer, I was already tearing up. I was like, this is going to be the worst thing that it's going to be up there with, Glenn dying in The Walking Dead. Like, absolutely devastating losses in my favorite shows. But I'm happy that I survived it. And to me, it wasn't that bad. Obviously upset that Claudia died, but I'm so proud of my girl. Like I said earlier, I'm so proud of how she went out. She did not give an inch. She was defiant to the end, and she stood up for what she believed for, and she got her piece out to the people who needed to hear it. The coven, the audience members, her fathers. She got to share her last minutes with her love. So I'm really happy with how she actually got to go out. And also, I want to say the episode was not a complete downer. There were so many funny moments, especially with the amazing animations. The music was great. I did not expect to laugh in this sort of episode, but here I was doing it. So it wasn't as bad as I was expecting. I was expecting the worst. I was expecting the characters to be pleading and crying and all these things. I expected Lestat, and I think that's another reason why it wasn't that bad. I expected to see Lestat haggard and frail and pleading, and it being more dramatic than it, being less dramatic than it was, but more dramatic, more like over drama is what we got. I expected it to be dramatic, but we got over dramatification, right? And that added to the humor of the episode. So yeah, it wasn't as bad as I expected. Other things in the episode, I really wanted to talk about the costumes really quickly. My favorite costumes of the episode, we have Lestat in his like two-piece suit, gorgeous stripes, gorgeous silhouette, and thing about his costume is that he is in stripes. And we know from season 1 with Carol Cutshaw, the costume designer, when we see stripes, we know that the character is not free to be truly themselves. And we see Lestat in stripes acting, clearly not wanting to be there, clearly not wanting to say the things that he's saying. So can't wait to see what that's about. We have not seen that moment when he's groping the wall, so looking forward to seeing how that plays out. Also, the other costume that I really loved in this episode was Claudia in her yellow dress. It was really beautiful. When I was doing my research for my cosplay and trying to figure out which of Claudia's looks I wanted to do, we had like 2 crappy screenshots, and through one of them I figured out that it might have been tiered or a peplum type outfit, and it was. And I was like, okay, I'm not gonna do this yellow dress because I don't love peplums, but I really loved how it looked on Delaney. I loved the shape of it. It wasn't like the rigid style peplums. It had more flow in it, and also was like asymmetrical. I loved that it flowed out a little bit, and not like the more fitted style of skirt at the bottom. So I really loved it, and it might be a contender for an upcoming cosplay. I gotta see if I can find a similar type dress, but it might be a contender. I really liked it. Like I said earlier, I loved the animation. They added so much to the episode. I loved the music. The music almost seemed like it was another character in the show with how integrated it was. We have the Coven members actually playing the score, so it was really interesting how they added music and what it did for the episode. It was also like beautiful music, just like really nice to hear. So I was really that was another one of my favorite things about the episode. I also, with how morbid it was, I really loved how they handled like Claudia's transformation, for lack of a better word, disintegrating into the sun. It looked so gruesome, but at the same time so realistic. I didn't love the special effects that they used on Louis in episode 5. I thought it looked too fake and kind of pulled me out of the moment. But Claudia's perfection. It was so gruesome, but so well done. And that moment where she's holding Madeline in her fingers. Now I'm crying. Now I can't believe I got through the whole episode, and like now I'm like getting emotional talking about it in the recap. But yeah, when her fingers like fall away, it was amazing. The only thing that I didn't love so much was the shaky camera angles when the Coven members would like mind control Louis and Claudia and Madeline. Like at first it was cool, like the first time they did it, it was cool, and it was like really interesting to show, like visually show like how painful and disorienting it was. But I think they only needed to really do it once. Like they did it throughout the episode, and it was kind of annoying at the end. I think just having the actors like really clutch their heads and like, groan in pain and all that would have been enough to convey that the mind control thing was going on. The shaky camera was a lot throughout the episode. It worked. Theoretically it works because the episode is so over dramatic and high camp and stuff like that. But I would have loved if they wouldn't have done it. So yeah, what did y'all think about this episode? Could Armand have prevented it? Do we believe? I feel like I ask this question every time. But do we believe Armand? Do we believe that he could not have prevented it? Other thing, do we believe that Lestat is telling 100% the truth? That even in the unscripted moments, in the unscripted and scripted moments, do we believe his version of events? And to what extent do you believe his version of events? But yeah, y'all, that's all for now. Thank you so much for watching the video, and I'll see you in the next one. The finale, I cannot believe we're already here with the finale. It is such a crime that networks are calling 8 episodes a season now. But what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? Start a riot. But anyway, I'll see you on the next video.